Welcome to Heartline Stories, where unforgettable moments and life-changing events unfold before your eyes. Today we're bringing you an incredible tale filled with twists, surprises, and secrets that were kept hidden for years. When a millionaire boss steps in to save a dream wedding on the brink of disaster, unexpected truths come to light, leaving everyone stunned. What could this boss's connection to the bride's family be? And how does a simple key change everything? Watch to find out and let us know where you're tuning in from. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay with us for every chapter. It all started on a bright Monday morning in New York City. I, Chloe Parker, was rushing to my job at Parker Enterprises, a booming tech company run by the brilliant and somewhat mysterious Mr. Alexander Blake. Mr. Blake wasn't your average millionaire. He had a sharp mind, a kind smile, and the uncanny ability to make the impossible possible. But little did I know, he was about to turn my life upside down. You see, in 2 weeks I was getting married to my childhood sweetheart, Ben Carter. Everything was supposed to be perfect. The dresses were ordered, the cake was designed, and the venue, a charming garden by the lake, was booked. But disaster struck like a thunderstorm out of nowhere. On Sunday evening, the venue called to say they had double booked. Someone else was going to have their wedding there on the same day. I felt like the world was crumbling. I spent the whole night crying and panicking. By morning, I barely managed to drag myself to work. My puffy eyes and red nose didn't go unnoticed. "Chloe, you look like you've been wrestling with a tornado," said Mr. Blake, raising an eyebrow as I handed him his morning coffee. I tried to brush it off, mumbling, "It's nothing, Mr. Blake." But Mr. Blake wasn't one to let things go. He leaned forward, his intense blue eyes fixed on me. "Chloe, what's wrong?" I finally spilled everything, from the canceled venue to my dashed wedding dreams. Mr. Blake listened carefully, his face thoughtful. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and said, "Leave it to me." I blinked at him. "What do you mean?" "Just trust me," he said with a sly smile. The next day, Mr. Blake called me into his office. "Chloe, we're moving your wedding to my estate," he announced casually, as if offering his backyard for a barbecue. "Your estate?" I echoed, wide-eyed. Mr. Blake lived in a massive mansion on a hill overlooking the ocean. It was the stuff of fairy tales. "Why not? It's just sitting there, being fancy," he said with a grin. "But there's one condition. You have to let me handle everything." I hesitated, unsure what he meant by everything. But I had no other options, so I nodded. Within days, his estate turned into a whirlwind of activity. I saw trucks unloading flowers, decorators climbing ladders, and chefs testing dishes. Mr. Blake oversaw every detail. One evening, while I was checking the progress, he walked up to me with a knowing smile. "Chloe, there's something you should know," he said. "You're not just my assistant, you're family to me, and family deserves the best." I was too stunned to speak. Why would a powerful millionaire care so much about me? That's when he revealed a secret so shocking and life-changing that my entire perspective shifted. Mr. Blake's expression softened as he looked at me, his usual businesslike demeanor replaced by something warmer, almost vulnerable. "Chloe," he began, his voice steady but low, "years ago, before I became the man you see now, I wasn't, well, let's just say I wasn't proud of who I was. I made mistakes, hurt people, and lost my way. But there was one family that believed in me, supported me, and pushed me to turn my life around." He paused and my heart thudded in the silence. Where was this going? "That family," he continued, was yours. I blinked. My family. Yes, your grandparents, to be exact. They gave me my first job when no one else would. Your grandfather trusted me when no one else did. He told me, "You can build something great, Alexander, but only if you believe in yourself." That's why I work so hard, why I built Parker Enterprises. I stared at him, my jaw practically on the floor. My grandparents had passed away when I was young, but I had always heard stories about how kind and generous they were. I never knew they had crossed paths with someone like Mr. Blake. That's why, when I saw you struggling, Chloe, he added, I knew I had to step in. This isn't just about helping you with a wedding. It's about giving back to the family that changed my life. I couldn't hold back the tears any longer. I, I don't know what to say, I whispered. You don't have to say anything, Mr. Blake said with a smile. Just enjoy the best wedding anyone's ever seen. Oh, and one more thing. There's a surprise waiting for you. A surprise, I asked, wiping my tears. You'll find out soon enough, he said, walking away with a mysterious glint in his eye. The days flew by, and soon the wedding day arrived. I couldn't believe my eyes when I stepped out onto the estate grounds. The place had been transformed into a magical wonderland with twinkling fairy lights, cascading flowers, and tables that looked like they belonged in a royal palace. It was beyond anything I could have imagined. But just as I thought the day couldn't get any more surreal, Mr. Blake approached me with a sealed envelope. Chloe, before the ceremony begins, open this, he said, handing it to me. I looked at the envelope, my hands trembling. What could possibly be inside? Was this the surprise he had mentioned? I carefully tore it open and gasped when I saw what was inside. My heart raced as I unfolded the letter, the words staring back at me like a secret waiting to be unveiled. I unfolded the letter, my fingers trembling with anticipation. The handwriting was elegant and familiar. It took me a moment to realize it was my grandfather's handwriting. My eyes widened and my breath caught as I began reading. Dear Chloe, it began. If you're reading this, it means Alexander Blake has fulfilled his promise, a promise he made to me many years ago. I froze. A promise? What promise? The letter continued. Mr. Blake was at his lowest point when he came to us, and we believed in him, just as we believed in you. Before I passed, I made him promise two things: to always remember the kindness of others and to pay it forward. This wedding is his way of keeping that promise, but it's also much more. Chloe, your heart is full of love and compassion, and I know that with Ben by your side, you'll create a life that inspires others, just as we tried to inspire you. Tears rolled down my cheeks as I clutched the letter to my chest. My grandfather's words were a gift, a reminder of the love and wisdom he had left behind. But there was more. Another sheet of paper tucked inside the envelope. I pulled it out, and my jaw dropped. It was a deed to a small but beautiful piece of land, right by the lake where I had originally planned my wedding. The land was in my name. Mr. Blake acquired this for you, the letter explained, so you'll always have a place to create your own memories. Use it to build your dreams. I was speechless. This wasn't just a wedding. It was a legacy, a bridge between the past and the future. I turned to find Mr. Blake standing nearby, watching me with a knowing smile. Why would you do all this for me? I asked, my voice shaking. Because your grandparents believed in me when no one else did, he said, and now it's my turn to believe in you. Before I could respond, the ceremony music began to play. It was time to walk down the aisle, but my mind was racing with 1,000 thoughts. What would I do with the land? How could I honor my grandparents' legacy? And what other surprises did Mr. Blake have up his sleeve? The ceremony began, and as I walked down the aisle, I couldn't help but glance at Mr. Blake. His expression was calm, yet there was something almost triumphant in his gaze. The day was already full of surprises, and I had a feeling he wasn't done yet. The wedding itself felt like a dream. Ben was beaming as I reached him, his smile brighter than the sunlit garden surrounding us. We exchanged vows under an archway covered in flowers, and as we said "I do," the guests erupted into cheers. For a moment, everything else faded away, and it was just the two of us, standing on the edge of a brand new chapter. But Mr. Blake wasn't one to let a day like this end quietly. As Ben and I greeted our guests at the reception, Mr. Blake tapped his glass to get everyone's attention. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, his voice commanding but warm, "today is not just a celebration of love, but also a celebration of family, legacy, and the power of kindness." The crowd murmured in curiosity as he stepped forward, holding a small wrapped box. "Chloe," he said, gesturing for me to join him. I walked up nervously, my heart pounding. "This," he said, handing me the box, "is the last part of your surprise." I hesitated, then carefully unwrapped the box. Inside was a small key tied to a handwritten note. The note read, "Sometimes the greatest gifts are the ones we didn't even know we needed. Use this key to unlock your future." "A key?" I asked, looking up at him, puzzled. Mr. Blake chuckled. "Not just any key. It opens the doors to a little project I've been working on, a community center, a space where people can learn, create, and grow, just like your grandparents once helped me to do." The room erupted into applause, but I was too stunned to react. "A community center? For me to manage?" "The center is located on the land I gifted you," he continued. "I know it's a lot to take in, but I believe in your ability to make it something incredible, Chloe. You've always had a knack for bringing people together." Tears welled up in my eyes again. This was more than a gift. It was a chance to build something meaningful, to honor my grandparents' legacy in a way I had never imagined. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice choked with emotion. "You're welcome," he said with a grin, "but don't thank me yet. Running a community center is no walk in the park. You're going to have to work hard, but I know you'll make it thrive." As the night went on, I couldn't stop thinking about everything that had happened: the letter, the land, the key, and the community center. My life had changed in ways I couldn't have foreseen, and I had a feeling this was just the beginning. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. Between settling into married life with Ben and diving headfirst into plans for the community center, my days were fuller than ever. The land Mr. Blake had gifted me was even more beautiful in person, with its rolling green fields and the glistening lake nearby. It was the perfect spot for a place where people could come together. Mr. Blake, true to his word, supported me every step of the way. He arranged for architects, builders, and even a team of volunteers to help bring the vision to life. But he also made it clear that this was my project. "This is your chance to leave your mark, Chloe," he said. "Don't be afraid to dream big." And dream big I did. I envisioned a space where kids could play and learn, where families could gather, and where anyone in need of a helping hand could find one. I spent hours sketching out ideas, talking to local residents, and poring over plans with the architects. Ben was my biggest cheerleader, always reminding me to take breaks and breathe. One day, while sorting through some old boxes my parents had kept, I stumbled upon a treasure, a photo album filled with pictures of my grandparents. There they were, smiling and happy, their arms around a much younger Mr. Blake. Seeing those photos made everything feel even more real, like I was carrying on a legacy they had started. As the community center began to take shape, something unexpected happened. One evening, while visiting the site, I noticed a man standing at the edge of the property. He was tall with a weathered face and a look of quiet determination. He introduced himself as Samuel Hayes, a retired teacher who had recently moved to the area. "I heard about what you're building here," he said, his voice deep but kind. "It's inspiring. If you ever need someone to teach or mentor, I'd be happy to help." Samuel's offer was the first of many. Word about the community center spread, and soon people from all over the area were offering their skills and time. It was heartwarming to see so many strangers come together for a common purpose. But with all the progress we were making, challenges weren't far behind. One morning, Mr. Blake called me into his office with a serious look on his face. "We've hit a snag," he said. "There's a group trying to claim ownership of part of the land. It's an old dispute, but it could complicate things." My stomach dropped. "What does that mean for the center?" "It means we'll have to fight for it," he said. "Don't worry, Chloe. I won't let anything stand in the way of your dream." The claim on the land became a storm that we all had to face. Mr. Blake, true to his word, poured every ounce of his resources into the fight. Lawyers were hired, documents were retrieved, and meetings were held. I watched as this man, who could have walked away without any personal loss, stood by my side like a guardian. In the end, justice prevailed. The courts ruled in our favor, affirming our right to the land. It was a hard-earned victory, and one that made me value the community center even more. With the legal issues resolved, we put the final touches on the center. On opening day, the air was electric with excitement. Families, friends, and volunteers poured in to see the fruits of our labor. Mr. Blake stood quietly at the back, watching the crowd with a satisfied smile. During the opening ceremony, I stepped up to the microphone, my heart pounding. "This center," I began, "is not just a building. It's a dream made possible by the kindness of one man, by the memories of my grandparents, and by the strength of this community." I glanced at Mr. Blake, who gave me an encouraging nod. "And now it belongs to all of you," I said, my voice shaking with emotion. The applause was thunderous. As the ribbon was cut and people began exploring the center, I felt a sense of fulfillment I had never known before. This was more than I could have ever dreamed, a way to honor the past, celebrate the present, and build the future. As the sun set over the lake that evening, Mr. Blake approached me. "You did it, Chloe," he said. "No," I replied, smiling. "We did it." And so the community center became a beacon of hope, a place where people could come together, share their stories, and find support in one another. It wasn't just the end of a project, it was the beginning of a legacy that would continue for generations.